Welcome to South Central Regional Library's Safe Inside Your Walls programming, supported by Safe at Home Manitoba.
Hi, I'm Joyce, and today we're going to learn how to make wonky houses without using a pattern. Here's some examples. I start with the doors, and I like to put little animals in them, or any kind of creature. The size of the door dictates the size of the house. So now I'm going to show you some smaller ones. So now these houses are much smaller. Each of the doors has a little cat in it. And you notice there's different roof styles and different kinds of grass. And you'll learn all of them, or at least some of them. Now I'll show you some of the fabrics I have that have little creatures in them. Although you don't have to do that. You could use a piece of brown to make the door. You could use orange to show light is coming through, but I like creatures. This one you saw upstairs with the little cats. I have black ones and yellow ones. This one you also saw upstairs. They're quite a bit bigger, and there's quite a few. So I could put a different animal in each doorway. This one's very cute for a kid's quilt. It's got little bears and rabbits, or maybe dogs, all getting ready for bed. Very cute. This one is cats, again. This is Laurel Birch fabric. Her cats are so beautiful. And for older people, I have Beatles fabric. I've gathered up some fabrics that might look good for the house. This one looks a little bit like boards. That could be the roof, could be the walls. Maybe you want a purple house. This one looks like tiles for the roof. Or sometimes I like a black roof. Anything works. Now we'll think about the sky. Since I like doing this kind of thing, I've collected some sky fabric. This is a regular sky. Here's a winter sky. Some snowflakes. Or you could use plain blue, that's fine too. Or maybe you want a starry nighttime sky. Now we have to think about the grass or the ground in front of the house. So I have a collection of greens here. This one I don't think I'd use. It looks a bit like a snakeskin to me. This one might be nice, maybe a little bit too regular. This is nice. This would be nice on a larger house because the flowers are quite big. I love this one. That one I got in New Zealand. It's the New Zealand symbol. And this is another one from New Zealand. But it doesn't have to be green. You might want a flower patch, like this one. Or you could have plain green. All of these fabrics should be quilting fabrics though. You couldn't use stretch fabric for this. If you were going to use the snowy sky though, then you'd probably want to use white instead of grass for your snow. I've cut two of these little critters for doors. The first one didn't work out that well because he's standing crooked. If he's straight, the door is crooked, and if the door is straight, he's crooked. So I cut another one. I had to cut his arm off a little bit because somebody was standing too close, but that doesn't matter. He's got his arm behind the door. And I wanted a book because of course we're doing this for the library. Now I'm going to start building the walls. So I need to put a little strip on this side and on this side. This side I'll put a narrower strip because I'm going to put a window. We don't have to be very precise and careful cutting these strips. I just take my rotary cutter and make a cut. So I'm going to have one on each side. Now I'm going to put these right sides together. And the same on this side, right sides together. And take them to the sewing machine and stitch them all down. Now I'm just going to trim everything. And this is wonky, so nothing has to be measured. In fact, it's better if you don't measure things. Now on this side, I'm going to put a window. I've got some bright yellow for the window. So I'll cut off a little strip from the window. And of course we need, the window doesn't come right to the bottom. So I'll sew the window onto this piece and then this piece onto the wall. I'm just going to trim this straight. And I will put the window about there. So I'm going to sew that on and then trim the bottom off. Of course, I'm pressing between each step. Now I'm going to trim the bottom. And then we need to put the other side of the window. So I'll cut a piece. And I'm going to sew it on here. So of course the door and window don't come right up to the roof, so we need to put another strip here. I'll be trimming this later, but for now, I'll just cut it a little bit wider. And I will sew right sides together. I'll press it. I'm pressing towards the top piece because I have lots of seams here, and I think it's better to press towards the least seams. You notice that some of his head is missing, some of the book, but that's all right. He's standing inside the house, not in front of it. Now I'm going to trim this, and how long do I want it? Maybe here. It's a judgment call. Depends how tall you want the house. I'll do it about here. And it doesn't have to be straight. It is a wonky house, so, but I will cut this one straight. Maybe there. And if you don't like it, you just rip it off and do it again. I'm going to cut a strip. I'm cutting it about 2.5 inches. You won't use all of this even close, so if you have scraps, use them. And I also will need a piece of sky. And I'll cut about 3 inches of that. There's quite a bit of waste if you use whole pieces of fabric, so that's why I often like to do them just with scraps. You might have noticed on the houses we showed at the beginning, there's different kinds of roofs. I'm going to make this kind. So, and then I will cut there, you can see the roof. Now I have to make the sky, and it has to stick out past the house, and it has to be at the same angle as the roof. So I use the roof as a pattern. And then I'm going to put it like this, right sides together, to sew it. And the sky is a little bit wider than the roof, just to allow for mistakes. Before you sew the sky to the roof, just make sure that they match, right sides together, and it's going to be this kind of an angle. That is a bias, so it is easy to stretch it, but since this is wonky, we don't really care. So if we had reversible fabric, we would just turn it upside down and do this, but we don't. So we have to do this again and match the angle. And I'll cut it off about here. Again, we're just guessing what we'll need. Then it's back to the sewing machine. And we'll put it together like this. And there we have our roof and our sky. Now to the ironing board. It doesn't really matter which way you press it. I find it's a little easier to press it into the angle. Probably should have used lighter thread. All right, now I'm just going to trim this all so it's even. Now you can see how the roof is going to fit on our building. But before we sew the roof on, we have to put something on the side. There has to be sky under here. And the house doesn't sit, I'll just show you. The house doesn't sit right on top of the earth. It should sit down into the earth. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So now I've cut 2 more blue pieces to go on the sides of the house, and I have some green for the grass, but now it looks like the house is kind of sitting in midair. So I'm going to take some green, and then when I put the other strip on, it's sitting on the house. I could also put a path here. We'll decide that in a bit. All right, I want to cut these squares a little bit shorter, but I have to think about my seam allowance, so I'll have them about 1/4 of an inch more than I need, and I can always trim. Just remember that always cut it bigger than you need, trim it smaller. And don't forget your 1/4 inch seam, you've always got that. Uh-oh, I see a mistake. Right sides together. I didn't do it. I put wrong side to right side. So where's my seam ripper? Everybody who sews needs a seam ripper because nobody sews without making mistakes. And ripping out is not a big deal. It doesn't take very long. Now, right sides together. We'll give that another try. Now we'll just snip these ends off. One here and one here, right sides together. Right sides together. I'm going to trim this all nice and even. Now we can put our roof on. You'll notice that the roof eaves are not even. Doesn't matter. This is a wonky house. If you wanted, you could take it apart and put it even, but I like it like this. Now we'll put on the grass. This piece isn't quite as long, but I think I'm going to trim it anyway, so I'll just sew this piece on for the grass. I'm going to make a chimney. I just need a tiny little piece, so I went to my scrap box and I found this. Now I wish I'd have made the roof out of this. Would have been great. But it's going to be the chimney. So the chimney is going to be very small, but we do have seams, so I have the sky piece. The chimney's going to go here, but I don't want the chimney to go past the sky, so I'll cut it off about here and sew a little piece of sky to it. So I cut it here. Here's a tiny little scrap. Tiny little scraps come in very handy when we're doing these houses. So this will be the chimney. And once you get more adventurous, you can make the chimney go like this. Again, you have to think about these angles though. So today we'll do a straight one. So now I'm going to have to cut this sky piece to be able to fit the chimney in. So I'll cut it about the middle, but it doesn't matter if the chimney's in the middle of the roof because the roof is all wonky already, so. Okay, it's going to go here. Right sides together. Now I'm going to cut this little bit of sky off, and then I'm going to sew the chimney on. Now all I have to do is trim it into a square. And there you have your wonky house. If you wanted it more wonky, you could cut this at an angle, you can cut this at an angle, you can cut the sky at an angle, you can do the chimney at an angle, but this is your basic house. So here's our finished block beside a quilt, like a little mini wall hanging quilt. You could make a placemat, you could put it on the side of a bag. There's endless things you can do with your wonky houses.
Thank you for joining us for this Safe at Home Manitoba production. Stay safe inside your walls.